The season hasn't even started yet, but the Atlanta Falcons need a factory reset. We'll explain on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, The Goods, Joe Goodberry. On today's show, we're going to examine the rest of the preseason Week 3 slate. We're going to talk about how we need to see more from Caleb Williams with the Bears, why the Chiefs have bigger issues than Patrick Mahomes' return, but we got to start with some teams who I don't know if they're ever even going to get off the starting line this year that play each other this week. The Miami Dolphins and the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons in particular. I saw a recent report where they are not ready to name Tua the starting quarterback because he has been so bad. Michael Penix is just getting back into practice. I don't even know if he's fully back yet, but he's getting out there. Are they in a position where they kind of got to give the starting job to Michael Penix because Tua has been so bad?
Yeah, we can see this situation pretty common, right? Where you have drafted a quarterback, maybe he hasn't been great. Maybe he hasn't completely won the job or has dealt with an injury, right? And you bring in a veteran that is not a bridge, because that would bring you to your new quarterback. This is more of an easy competition that, hey, if this guy wins the job, if Tua looks great, fine. If not, you have to go with the young quarterback because you don't really have many options. You have to hope that guy develops.
Yeah, and I think the long-term potential of Michael Penix, even if the confidence isn't high right now, if Tua is that bad, then I mean, even if Michael Penix is also that bad, at least there's some long-term potential there. And my guy Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons, he reminded his folks earlier this week, Tua was never the long-term answer here.
The idea of Tua just never really made sense to me as a, viable option beyond being a bridge quarterback. And, we have no interest in bridges here. All right, again, I can't speak for you, but I just know for me, I'm done with bridges, guys. I'm done with bridges. We've had enough bridges these last couple of years. I have zero interest in bridges. Tua, you're basically 2 years too late to be a bridge. And instead we want a playmaking quarterback, right? At this position. I think we want that.
That's what the Falcons need desperately. They've been so deprived for so many years of it. But again, if Tua is that bad, the other players are going to see that. It's not even a conversation about long-term potential. Like, the vibes from Atlanta are that the players can't imagine having Tua as the starting quarterback going into the year because it's been that bad in training camp and practices.
You can't have that. That is a virus that can go throughout the locker room that you want to squash as fast as possible, especially when you're new people at leadership positions like Kevin Stefanski, right? You can't start your career with the Atlanta Falcons this way because you're never going to get another head coaching job again, right? You never get 3 swings at this thing. You get 2 and that's it. So he picked Atlanta. I think, you hear Freeman there saying like what ideally they want at quarterback. It's not on the roster. It's not there. It's not going to happen, guys. I'm sorry to say that. Maybe Stefanski. There's been times where I thought that offense could really flourish with a quarterback that could just play the offense and get the ball out to where it's supposed to go to. Can someone do that? Something like that's Tua. Can Penix at least be that? That can be good for short term. And then eventually you're like, hey, we need that playmaking quarterback. So again, we talk about quarterback purgatory a lot on this show. It seems like the Falcons are stuck, or maybe the gold standard of quarterback purgatory for 2026.
Yeah, they are a great example because they aren't even a team that's bad all the time. They're like a decent team most years that, 7, 6, 8, 9 wins, somewhere in there. And that is like the poster child for quarterback purgatory. It's not where you're bad all the time, because at least you have chances to get a good quarterback when you're bad all the time. It does leave the Falcons stuck. And you're right. Maybe neither of those guys are ever going to be the answer anyway, whether Penix is younger or not. It doesn't matter. And hopefully I want to see this Falcons roster with all the talent they have with a decent quarterback eventually. So hopefully we get to see that. But we move to a team that I don't think is going to be stuck in purgatory. I think they're going to be awfully, awfully bad. And they were pretty rough in practice this week in the joint practices. That's the Miami Dolphins. And the reality of the Dolphins situation is everything is about Malik Willis this year. And my guy Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins talked about that.
And then obviously there's the quarterback conversation of if Malik Willis' season doesn't inspire us, then that's a whole other can of worms as far as what it's going to look like. And if the Dolphins don't get good quarterback play this year, they're going to be drafting first few picks. I think, the pathway for them overachieving the external expectations is that Malik Willis is the player that they seem to think that he is. And obviously, as a fan of the team that has Malik Willis here and they're invested in him now, I'm hoping that that's the case, because that would create this very exciting spider web of options for what things could look like.
Hey, if Malik Willis is the answer, the Dolphins are in a great spot because they're still not going to be super competitive. They'll have a high pick and a great draft. They'll have a cheap answer at quarterback for a couple of years that they can build around and build the castle around the king, so to speak. You know what I mean? That would be great, but based on the way things have gone early on, and yes, they can get better, but preseason expectations, preseason performance combined makes me not have very much faith in the Dolphins. And they're another team that it's like they could just shut down the season or sim the season already.
Yeah, they are the example of hitting the reset button. They understood the scenario they were in up against the cap, had to get rid of a lot of veterans and had to really restart. And when you do that, you look at the roster, and I thought they had a really good draft, right? So, but that's 2 years down the line, right? When we really see the impact of that. Oh yeah, I thought they had a fantastic draft. Dolphins fans, take that, and now we understand you guys are going to be pretty bad. And not just Malik Willis, if he's good, maybe they can win 8 games. No. He would have to be amazing for you to win 8, 9, 10 games. Now that would be cool because you would have that piece answered. But at the same time, if we just see a good Malik Willis, I wonder if we'll even recognize it. It'll be very interesting for the analysts to dive into this Dolphins film this year because the team around him may not be very good at all. He may be good in practice right now, but the team around him is so bad that he can't function or can't look as good as he maybe would for a Packers offense that was high functioning, right? When he had to step in. So if we recognize it, will be key here. I don't know that we will.
Malik Willis is the kind of guy that can adequately drive the Lamborghini. But if you're asking him to just be a great racer and win it in a Chevy, he's probably not going to be able to do that. Now, I'm not a car guy, so if that doesn't make any sense functionally.
I was going Ford Taurus in my head.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, the point is, if Malik Willis is good enough to be a starter that you can win with, like you said, we are not going to know this year because this is like the worst possible situation for Malik Willis to prove himself in, which is why I don't think there is any scenario where Malik Willis is the starting quarterback for this team next year on purpose, because they are going to be so bad no matter what he does that his potential is not high enough to pass on an Arch Manning or Dante Moore, whoever ends up rising to the top by the end of the college football season. Like, I just do not believe there is a scenario where the Dolphins can win enough games to not be interested in quarterback and Malik Willis to look good enough with this supporting cast to push that off either.
I agree completely. And again, even if he's good and we can't recognize it, that brings up questions. And if you have any questions and you're staring Arch Manning in the face, you're drafting Arch Manning. We've seen this so many times. The guy would have to be flawless. And in that case, you're not staring Arch Manning in the face because you won 4 or 5 games and you're picking third. So yes, if they're in that scenario where he's good or even has the flashes, they're not going to be good enough to really avoid drafting that franchise quarterback that's going to be looking at them.
It's an either or decision tree where none of the decision trees that you could follow lead to, Malik Willis is the future quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Like, it's just a tough spot, but at least he got that big money, that contract, and he got respect. Because as somebody who covered Malik Willis early in his career, I did not think that he was an NFL quarterback from what he did in Tennessee. And he has proven without a doubt that he's a good enough player to be in the NFL. So I am over the moon happy for Malik Willis in his career. And when he gets done playing football, he is going to impact thousands of lives through the church. This dude is an impactful guy. So I'm very happy for Malik Willis. But with that in mind, a quarterback that we don't have so many questions about is Patrick Mahomes. He is about as well taken care of and well put as you could possibly be. And some have been worried about his injury status coming into the year, but might be everything around Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense that we actually need to worry about. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Home Chef. Life gets busy. Figuring out what's for dinner every night, it can quickly become another thing on the to-do list. Home Chef takes the stress out of mealtime, though, by delivering fresh ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes right to your door. And people really love it. Home Chef is rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. For me personally, this time of year, watching a ton of film, doing a lot of content, sometimes I even forget that I need to have dinner, and that's where Home Chef comes in clutch. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off and free shipping on your first box, plus free dessert for life. Go to homechef.com/LockedOnNFL. That's homechef.com/LockedOnNFL for 50% off your first box and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/LockedOnNFL. Must be an active subscriber to receive your free dessert. Today's episode is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. There are certain flavors that instantly feel like summer. And for a lot of people, those classic red, white, and blue freezer pops are right at the top of the list. You get the sweet cherry, the lime, the blue raspberry. It's one of those nostalgic summer flavors that everybody recognizes. Now 5 Hour Energy is bringing that flavor combination into the new Firework Freeze 5 Hour Energy shot, blending sweet cherry, zesty lime, and electric blue raspberry into one refreshing shot inspired by those iconic summer freezer pops. Again, got a lot of content going on right now, a lot of film, a lot of podcasting, things like that to get me through that afternoon snooze. I got to hit that 5 Hour Energy. So ignite your taste buds with the flavor of the summer. Get a Firework Freeze 5 Hour Energy shot today. For more information, visit 5hourenergy.com. All right, Joe, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Again, we're looking at the weekend slate. It's preseason week 3, the last weekend of the preseason action. And after this, it's all on to the regular season. But one of the games that I'm going to be watching for here is the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's not really about Patrick Mahomes. It's more about everything around him, particularly the offensive line, where the left tackle battle for the Chiefs is still not resolved, according to our guys at Locked On Chiefs.
They have to get to the point of who the best player is to protect Patrick Mahomes, and they haven't gotten there.
No, and I don't know how they get there at this point, because it doesn't seem like there's enough time to figure it out between now and the regular season. And you're going into preseason game number 3 where both of these guys probably shouldn't be playing, if you have thoughts that either of them could be a starter. So how do you deal with that? And if Benson does play, I'd say that tells you exactly who has won that job. But with Simmons likely out again this week, even if he could play, does Jalen Moore go in? And I don't know how you do this in preseason game number 3.
I know that Patrick Mahomes is ahead of schedule, and that's great news for the Chiefs, but this is terrible news. If they got to play Khalil Benson out there because Simmons can't stay healthy, they got to move Jalen Moore around. Now they're asking him to switch sides from what they initially expected. That is not what you want when you have Patrick Mahomes coming back from an ACL injury.
That is not. That's just, we've had this as Bengals fans, right? And covering that team and watching Joe Burrow come back and worrying about the offensive line in front of him. And that was a terrible offensive line. Things worked out, right? You figured out how to run your offense. And I assume the Chiefs will be able to. This has not been a new thing, right? The offensive line has deteriorated for them for the last couple years. You could see it in Pat Mahomes, the receivers too. So everything around him has been deteriorating slowly. And listen, they've won their championships. They've seen the highest of the highs. They have their MVPs. Everything has gone well for the Chiefs. But if they want to get back there, they're going to have to find a way to get Mahomes to produce at the levels he was before. And that is largely protecting him, having an offensive scheme that can do this and scheme guys open again, because the receivers they have aren't one-on-one winners either, or they're young guys and are hoping for development and improvement there. I think there's a lot of questions on this Chiefs offense, and this isn't even touching the defense that lost a lot of players and key players in free agency.
You're 100% right. And I look at the Chiefs roster, I am not very impressed with the pass rush. And maybe R. Mason Thomas, who's looked solid for the Chiefs early on, maybe he could come in and make a bigger impact than I'm expecting. But Ashton Gillette, Felix Uzama, I liked Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee, more of just a pass rush type guy. Can he take a step forward? He's already banged up. Peter Woods, to me, was one of the more overrated players in the draft process. He's got a lot of natural talent for sure, but I don't know if he's going to help as a pass rusher right away for them. They brought in Emmanuel Ogbah to help, but who is Emmanuel Ogbah at this stage in his career? I know that George Karlaftis is a good player, maybe really good player is the way to put it. But he's not an elite edge rusher by any means. And Chris Jones, he was loafing at times last year. He is not who he was in his prime either. I look at that, and then I look at some of the uncertainty in the secondary, even with Mansour Delane, who's a good player. I don't know that their defense is talented enough to get back to where they expect to go and be a Super Bowl contender again, let alone, like you said, all the stuff we're talking about on the offense.
Yeah, and those are a lot of players that I did like in the draft process, like Mansour Delane, Ashton Jaloti. I'm a huge fan of George Karlaftis, but I think we have seen his ceiling. Peter Woods I did like, and I did think that the Clemson defense did not unleash him. So, but still,
he did well.
These are a lot of questions, and typically when you flip coins, they all don't land on heads or tails, depending on what you call it. Right. So if half of them do, where is this Chiefs defense? And where in some of these offensive linemen and receivers too for them, and running backs? Emmett Johnson looks good in free so far in preseason. So maybe that's like the explosive guy they get in this run game. But still, that's a lot of questions. They are sitting here and they need a lot of things to hit right. And they hit a lot back in 2021 and 2022. A lot of these draft picks and unknowns and day 3 picks hit for them. And I think they're banking on that again. Let's see if it happens. I'm going to be surprised again, like I was then. But if it does, these were a lot of players that I did like in the pre-draft process.
It's funny in the NFL, your roster building, it's like, it's so hard to even build a roster that's good at all. Like people, like the best general managers can do it multiple times. Like Howie Roseman, John Schneider, they've done it twice and they are like legends. You know, it's just so difficult to build good football teams and sustain good football teams because the draft is such a crapshoot. But a team that is going to be tasked with that job now is the Seattle Seahawks. They got to the top of the mountain. They've lost some players, but they have done a good job of keeping a lot of their key players around, paid a lot of people this offseason, and that continued this week with Leonard Williams, big cat on the D-line. I throw it to Rob Rang from Locked On Seahawks to give us that news.
The Seahawks are looking to move it forward by bringing back one of their biggest superstars, literally and figuratively, in big cat Leonard Williams, a 3-year, $90 million extension has been reported by Ian Rappaport. That would put Leonard Williams, frankly, rightfully, among the top 5 highest paid defensive tackles in all of the NFL. The only exception to those other defensive tackles, like a Jalen Carter, for example, or Vea Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who recently signed a 1-year deal with Tampa Bay, is that Leonard Williams is 32. He's entering his 12th NFL season. This is a significant risk for Seattle because of Leonard Williams' age, but he has been dominant. He's clearly part of the leadership of the team. I applaud the Seahawks for this investment in their right now possibilities of the Super Bowl, as well as think that this is exciting development for Byron Murphy II as well, who's going to be looking for a similar contract here soon.
Byron Murphy's going to get paid big time. I know that. But hey, Seattle has lost a little bit less talent than we normally see from Super Bowl teams. But I think some of the losses were so critical, especially Clint Kubiak, that it might make a massive difference.
Yeah, good call. As I was thinking about the players, then you mentioned Clint Kubiak. You're right. That could, this offense could have a massive setback. Again, they were kind of overachieving on offense in a lot of ways last year. Even Jackson Smith and Jigba being offensive player of the year. Like he's a very good receiver, and he's going to get, Seahawks fans are going to kill me for even saying this, but But is he Jamar Chase? Is he Justin Jefferson?
No.
Is he these top? Right, he's not. Like, let's be honest about it. This offensive scheme elevated everyone, and that's how you have to. If you're going to win the Super Bowl, guys have to get elevated. So I'm not like putting Jackson Smith and Jigba down by saying that. Sam Darnold had his best season. There was at the halfway point, their completion percentage, their yak, their explosive rate was blowing through the roof, breaking records, right? It didn't end that way. It was still very, very good. But at the halfway point of last year, it was like, we've never seen an offense completing passes down the field at this rate ever. Greatest show on turf stuff. If you're not that again, and in that division that is that stacked top to bottom, other than the Cardinals, that is going to be very tough to repeat. And they've already dealt with injuries now in camp. If they're on Hard Knocks, we've seen Nicky Manwari on the scooter. We've seen Jake Bobo go down, who's been their glue guy in the receiver room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these things start to add up. It's why it's hard to get back, because you already had a long season. You've already tested these players physically to the max, and you're going to lose players in the offseason. And now you've got to make that full 21 game run again. It's very, very tough.
Yeah, it's nearly impossible, which is why we don't see teams repeat essentially ever. You know what I mean? The Chiefs got one in there, but it's just not something that happens a lot in the NFL. I think, we mentioned it. I'm going to double down on it. I don't think that the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl again this year. It's just way too difficult, and they're not the caliber of team that I could see do it. But it's good that they did win, and they're rewarding the people who got them there. I'm with you. It's like, I don't want to be disrespectful because I think JSN could be more consistent than this, but Cooper Kupp had a crazy year in 2021 with the Rams, and everybody was putting him in top 5 wide receiver. Oh, he's the best receiver in the league, because you got to do more than one big time season.
He was never a top 5 guy, right?
No. And there are people who, just because of the production, say that. Like, I think that Puka Nacua is a better player than Jackson Smith and Jigba, and is more closer to Jamar Chase than JSN, even though I think he's very good. But like,
I bet the shelf life for JSN is going to be longer than Puka, though, because I just feel like he beats himself up a little bit out there.
No, you're 100% right. Puka plays like slobbering DB is the way that he plays football. He's like Cam Chancellor at wide receiver. But with that being said, big preseason slate still to cover. We're going to rapid fire through some games, but there are some quarterbacks that I think need to play a little bit more, and we start in the NFC North.
Matt Derry here from the Locked On Lions podcast. Life insurance is one of those things you don't really think about until you have a reason to. For me, it really hit home when my father passed away over 20 years ago. You start thinking less about yourself and more about the people who depend on you and making sure they're taken care of no matter what. That's why I like Ethos. They make getting life insurance simple. It's 100% online, no doctor visits, no needles, none of that. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in just a few minutes, and even get same-day coverage. And honestly, that's huge because life gets busy. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, and some plans are as low as just $30 a month. It's just one of those things that gives you peace of mind knowing your family is protected. Take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Applications may vary. Rates may vary.
All right, Joe, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Falcons and the Dolphins needing a factory reset already. We talked about the Chiefs and the Seahawks and their individual issues as we move into the season. Now I want to rapid fire a little bit with the rest of the schedule. And my big thing is having offenses ready to play, because offenses are historically harder to get on track than defenses. There's a lot more intricacies and a lot more details that need to be right for an offense to run smoothly. And I look at the Minnesota Vikings again, Joe, and I feel like last couple of weeks when I've talked to you, it's been like, yeah, they need to play Kyler Murray more. Yeah, they need to play Kyler Murray more. Yeah, they need to play Kyler. And it's just like, if you don't trust J.J. McCarthy to the point where you have already benched him, made him the number 2, and you've anointed Kyler Murray, then you need to get him ready to go. And this is the last chance for them to do it. And I'm looking at you, Kevin O'Connell. You better do it, because you're in a hard division. And if you lose early, it's going to be a hard hole to come out of.
And I wonder if these teams are doing this behind the scenes. They're not treating preseason like this prep anymore. A lot of teams with these inter practices with other teams and
That's
you know,
true.
getting that work done. They're getting 50, 60 plays in these practices where it's just starters going against starters for about 2 hours, and then they don't show up and do anything in preseason. So I think if this is going to be the new summer, what camp and preseason is kind of gelled into going in the future, we could get some surprises. And could Kyler be that surprise in September if he's really good? That's an offensive system that I believe in Minnesota, and they've got enough weapons. I believe they can be good enough. Defense, great system. We'll see if they even have enough talent, right? Are they going to be able to, is Brian Flores just going to carry that whole thing because he is the top DC in the league? We'll find out. But can Kyler be good? We have seen him be good in spurts. We have seen the high level. We've seen the flashes. Has he ever been consistent? No. Has he ever been able to consistently run an offense and be down to down good? No. Can he get that from this offense? That's what I think could be a good marriage between the two. You're right. We haven't seen it yet. Feels like they have concerns from the people that cover the team. But again, I wonder if we're not getting the full picture because of the way the offseason has been constructed around the NFL now.
The best way to get more consistency is to play and be consistent. Get him out there. I want to see some Kyler Murray this weekend, but there's another team in the NFC North that I think needs to play their quarterback, and it's the Chicago Bears. And they play the Tennessee Titans this week, and selfishly, I admit, the Titans haven't got to play against starters at all in either of their games before against NFC West teams. I'd like to see some starters out there, but Caleb Williams has been a little shaky. I think he'll always be a little shaky at times, but he didn't get any work last week. Only got, I think, one drive in the first game where he barely did anything. Caleb Williams had a good year last year, but if you look closely, it was up and down. He made big-time plays, but there were valleys as well. Again, if we're talking about creating consistency and being more consistent early on in the year and getting off on the right foot, which I think the Bears need to do because the NFC North is so difficult and the Packers look real good and real strong early on, I need to see Caleb Williams out there and starting to gain some consistency so that he is fully ready for the regular season.
Yeah, and the Bengals had that joint practice, and that's who they played last week in preseason. So I got to see that first drive from Caleb Williams ended in a field goal. It was against the Bengals backups. No starters played in that game. So you kind of are waiting for something to happen on the Bears offense. He didn't have Luther Burden out there, right? So it's Roma Dunze caught a naked bootleg where it's all scheme stuff. And then the couple throws where Caleb had to drop back, throw, and read and throw, I thought he was a bit rough. And he had scatter shot accuracy is what I wanted to say. And that's been who is in the past. They need him to be more than that, right? They got close last year, but you only get to catch defenses in the NFL season as a whole by surprise, I think, one time. And then you have to be very, very good. You have to ramp up your efficiency. You have to be down to down great to get back to that point again. Again, using a Bengals, they caught the league by storm in 2021. They had to turn into a very efficient team in 2022 to get back to the AFC Championship game, and they did. But it was a slow grind through September and most of October until they got to that point. Can the Bears afford to do that? I don't know. That is a very tough division.
I do not think that they can afford to do that. You bring up the Bengals. The last team that I want to mention here is in the AFC North, and I'll go back to it. Lamar Jackson, are you going to play at all? Are you going to do anything in this brand new offense? It's totally different than other types of offenses that you run. I want to see if I don't think that they're going to. I think a lot of teams are going to sit guys this weekend. Yeah. That would make me nervous if I was Baltimore. Similarly, I think the Bengals are going to come out strong. I like the Bengals this year. I think Baltimore needs to come out strong and kind of proof of concept for everybody in the locker room and everybody in the organization. Like, hey, that was a big change, but it was the right change. If they come out slow, it could just poison the water, or poison the well, I guess is the right way to say it.
I haven't heard anything from Ravens fans and analysts this summer because it's a very different approach than what they did in previous preseasons when Harbaugh wanted to win every single game. Remember the streak, and they were beating their chests like that. We don't lose in preseason. And to their credit, they were very good regular season team too. So they got to the playoffs. They've been a very successful organization. Very different approach this year. Very curious to see if this is going over well with the players who maybe felt Harbaugh was running them into the ground. They were always injured. It's different perspective this season for Ravens fans. I wonder if they're dealing with that well, or if they're just like, we'll just wait till week one. We'll wait like the rest of these teams do when their starters never play in preseason.
Yeah. It's to me, I understand teams that want to hide away, but Baltimore with brand new coaches, brand new systems, all of that, that's a dangerous game because you can hide your stuff, but if you don't execute it well enough, it doesn't matter that the defense didn't see it coming because you can't do your part. So,
well, I'm sure that'll be the criticism. Those would be the headlines. If they start off rough the first couple of weeks, the whole Baltimore, but you didn't play in preseason. We take preseason seriously around here. It's like, okay.
I mean, it's me. I'm creating the narrative. I will be the guy who says that like you're dang right. So with that being said, though, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Goods, Joe Goodberry, as we tell you every single episode. Thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.